I'm going to start my contribution by reflecting on the member for Bendigo's speech that she's just given in the parliament, and I must say I'm quite confused, Mr Deputy Speaker. The member for Bendigo spent the first half of her contribution talking about why the Regional Investment Corporation should be in Bendigo, and then the second half of her speech was talking about why the Regional Investment Corporation should not exist at all. So really, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And what is most significant about the member for Bendigo's contribution is she spent no time talking about our farmers. She spent no time recognising the incredible contribution that they make to this nation and the incredible importance of agriculture to our nation. And that's, of course, what this bill is all about. And she also is very critical about the Deputy Prime Minister and his focus on decentralisation. Well, that's not surprising from members opposite who are, particularly in Victoria, are so city-centric that they even forget the farmers exist half the time. And we have seen that time and time again. And under Daniel Andrews, we've seen an incredibly city-centric state government with an incredible focus on the needs of people living in metropolitan Melbourne and not nearly enough of those living in regional Victoria. So what a shame that we didn't see from the member for Bendigo the opportunity that she could have taken to support decentralisation. And it's a very important part of our government's agenda. And I am very, very proud of how we are supporting decentralisation because, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is delivering in spades that important policy for our region in Corangamite and across the Greater Geelong region. And while this was a bipartisan decision, it was with great pride that the Minister for Social Services joined me in Geelong to turn the sod on the beginning of the construction of the National Disability Insurance Agency. And I do take issue with the member for Bendigo seeming to reflect on public servants that they don't really have, well, it's not really appropriate to move them out of Canberra. We think it's very important that we spread these agencies around the nation, and there is a very, very significant example in Geelong. That's going to be an incredible organisation in Geelong. Of course, it's already up and running, but once the new national headquarters are built, it will bring literally hundreds of jobs to our region. And of course, we've also brought to Geelong the Australian Bureau of Statistics National Data Centre, which is another great investment of the Turnbull government, bringing hundreds of jobs to Geelong, and again another example of how we are working hard to embrace decentralisation, to stand up for regional communities, to stand up for farmers, and to make sure that the regions are not forgotten as they were under Labor. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Regional Investment Corporation Bill delivers on an important election commitment that we made to establish a Regional Investment Corporation to be the single delivery agency for the Commonwealth's Farm Business Concessional Loans Program, the National Water Infrastructure Loan Facility and any other future programs. And this is incredibly important because it means that in the future farmers will be able to access farm business concessional loan funding quickly and easily with a streamlined and nationally consistent application and approval process. And we saw in the wake of our very important announcement of the dairy concessional loan package and the dairy rescue package that was announced prior to the election last year, we saw the issues with the Victorian government failing to deliver that program as it was intended. So we think that this is going to be much more efficient, and we saw, as I say, with each state delivering the program previously, loan decisions were not being made in a consistent way across the country. So the Regional Investment Corporation will administer up to $2 billion in concessional loans, and that's designed to encourage growth, investment and, of course, resilience in our rural and regional communities. The RAC will also deliver the $2 billion National Water Infrastructure Loan Facility. And again, this is very, very important that we have a streamlined and more efficient approach than we have in the past. Mr Deputy Speaker, To date, almost $725 million in farm business concessional loans have been approved to over 1,340 farm businesses, with over 1,100 farm businesses being approved for a drought-related or farm finance concessional loan as well. 228 farm businesses, which equates to some $129 million, have been approved for a dairy recovery concessional loan. So, once again, Mr Deputy Speaker, we see the Turnbull government standing up for regional communities, and I'm incredibly proud of this particular announcement and the fact that we are again delivering another one of our important election commitments. We did, as I say, from the member for Bendigo, receive a tirade, I'd have to say, of complaints, but really very, very poor focus on the needs of regional communities. And, perhaps there was no greater example of that when the dairy farmers in Victoria hit very, very tough times. And they hit very tough times, and that was very much exacerbated because of the actions of companies such as Murray Goulburn and also Fonterra, and those terrible clawbacks, which have in part been remedied, and I certainly welcome the ACCC's decision to commence legal proceedings, because the actions of Murray Goulburn, frankly, were utterly disgraceful. So there is, of course, on foot legal proceedings whereby Murray Goulburn has been accused of engaging in unconscionable conduct and also making false or misleading representations. And when that occurred, Mr Deputy Speaker, we moved very quickly as a government to stand up for farmers. $550 million in dairy recovery concessional loans were announced. We also announced $900,000 for an additional 9 rural financial counsellors, $900,000 for Dairy Australia's tactics for tight times, and various other measures to support the farmers. And I have to say, while there are still challenges ahead, the dairy farmers in Corangamite and in southwest Victoria are certainly doing a lot better. And they're also doing a lot better, Mr Deputy Speaker, because we are investing right across the board in regional communities through our Building Better Regions Fund, a very significant fund, investing in community infrastructure, investing in local programs to ensure that every single regional community has a voice. In Corangamite, we are investing. The total value of this program is more than $500 million, duplicating the Princess Highway. And that has absolutely inspired business investment and confidence. A road from Geelong to Colac, where now we see a situation in Colac where there is a housing shortage because of the amount of employment in the town and because of the fact that unemployment has gone from double figures when Labor was in power down to under 5%. And that is why we invest in this important infrastructure, because it drives jobs, it drives investment, it brings industries into the regions, and of course it builds that much-needed confidence that did not exist under the previous Labor government. We've put record funding into the Roads to Recovery program, $40 million. We're upgrading the Great Ocean Road. This is the road that Labor forgot, Mr Deputy Speaker. This is the road that under the previous Labor government it refused to fund. This government, recognising the national significance of this road, the geographic and geotechnical challenges in maintaining this road, is now putting $50 million. And that has made an incredible difference to communities along the Great Ocean Road and also, of course, to our tourism and visit economy, which is so important for Victoria. One of the greatest contrasts between our government, Mr Deputy Speaker, and those opposite is investing in mobile communications. And what a poor reflection on Labor, on the Labor Party, that they did not see any value in investing in improving mobile communications in Australia. And we are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into that program. Some 18 mobile base stations are being funded in Corangamite. There are many challenges, of course, and that too is making a very significant difference, because for the first time, Mr Deputy Speaker, regional communities do feel that they have a voice under the Liberal National Federal Coalition. The NBN is being rolled out. It was a very paltry performance under the previous government, and now, of course, over 50,000 homes are now NBN ready in Corangamite. Another incredibly significant investment in regional communities is the Regional Rail Program across Victoria. And I do commend the Minister for Infrastructure, the member for Gippsland, for his commitment as well. And in Corangamite, right through to Warrnambool, and in Wannon, of course, there was great support from the member for Wannon as well. We're investing $224 million in upgrading passenger rail. I campaigned night and day for this investment, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I'm very, very proud that the track between Warn Ponds and South Geelong is being duplicated. Mind you, we are concerned about the state's slowness in delivering its business plan, but we are pleased that this, after a lot of campaigning and advocacy, that this program has been accepted by the state government, and we're now seeing those critical upgrades. We need a fast train between Melbourne and Geelong. The Regional Rail Link, another absolutely dismal Labor project, frankly, a multi-billion-dollar project, has now delivered a suburban rail service to the people of Geelong. The Regional Rail Link has actually been a disaster for regional communities in Colac, Birregurra, Warrnambool and Geelong, with this program whereby the rail is now going via places like Tarneet, and it really has been a monumental waste of money. It needs to be fixed. Mr Deputy Speaker, another big focus that I've been working very hard on is the delivery of a city deal for the Geelong and Great Ocean Road region. There's a lot of hard work. I'm pleased that the state has finally determined that the Geelong and Corangamite regions should be the priority location for a city deal in Victoria. But of course there is a lot of hard work to be done, and we're still working very hard to deliver a city deal for our region. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, I commend this bill to the House. This is another example of our government standing up for farmers. This comes, of course, on top of some other very significant national programs and national initiatives, led, of course, by our very significant free trade agreements, which have opened up new export markets for our farmers. Those free trade agreements have also delivered great new confidence for agribusinesses and for our farmers. But let's not forget, and I represent many small towns, Mr Deputy Speaker, let's not forget, and I have a strong mantra, community first, politics second, but also in a place like Corangamite where there are so many small towns, every community matters. And that's why, as another example of how we are standing up for the regions, our Stronger Communities program is making such a difference. That's been a great success, providing matching funding to community organisations and volunteer groups around the country, a maximum of $150,000 per electorate, and it's making a real difference. So communities at last under this government feel that they have a voice, that their projects are recognised, and that they are being funded. And I'm delighted that I've received some wonderful applications for the next round of the Stronger Communities program, and that program has been embraced so widely. Mr Deputy Speaker, it is very disappointing that Labor has announced it will not support the RIC. It proposes to pocket the so-called savings, and once again we see Labor and members opposite really failing to understand why streamlined programs, why the delivery of these important programs, particularly in terms of crisis, in terms of where you can't get caught up in bureaucracy, where farmers can't go through the rigmarole of dealing with state and Commonwealth agencies, we just can't tolerate that. So it's really disappointing that Labor is not interested in a more efficient delivery of these important programs that make such a difference to regional communities. As I say, Mr Deputy Speaker, I commend this bill to the House, and once again I recognise just how important it is that the Turnbull government is standing up for regional communities, including in my electorate of Corangamite.